Hungarian Folk Tales. Bees on the Train. Once upon a time there was a large farm, and on that farm lived a man who had relatives from another village who came to visit him one day. They did not want to arrive empty-handed, so they brought him a gift of honey. The honey was quickly eaten with big chunks of fresh bread and was soon all gone. But while they sat eating, they discussed what a fine thing it was to keep bees and how simple it was with such rich rewards. The man could hardly wait for the next farm gathering where he suggested they should buy bees to make honey. The head farmer agreed and asked if there was anyone willing to work with bees. A man stood up and said he knew all there was to know about bees. He also told them that he knew where to buy bees if that was what they wanted, and everyone cheered with joy. They worked out how much money to give the man, and he set off to buy bees for the farm. He bought as many hives as he could put on a train. Then he had the whole car covered in red cloth and had red clothes and a red hat made to wear. He soon made friends with the bees and spoke to them. He opened the door and the bees came and went as they pleased. When they were halfway back to the farm, the train drove into a sidetrack and the engine left. So the man asked the station master, "Why has the engine gone?" "Because," the station master said, "it was ordered to leave." "How long will the train be in the station?" "Who am I to know that?" "Don't talk to me like that, kind sir, because if I know that the train will be staying here for a whole day long, then I will let my bees out so they can have some air and food." "The train will remain for at least 3 days more," the station master told him. The beekeeper went out and opened up the hives. Come out, children, and have some air. Find food for yourselves and return to your hives in time for the sunset." The bees had barely left when suddenly the station master had an order to start the train again. The beekeeper saw from the top of the carriage that the engine was coming and the train was hooked up, and they sat waiting for the station master's signal to start. The beekeeper ran to complain. "What is all of this? You never told me about this, station master, but I received an order to start the train." "But that's impossible. My bees are still in the field. They cost a fortune." "What am I to do with your bees?" the station master replied. "I am a station master and not a beekeeper." "Well, at least leave the carriage with the bees here in the station so it can be coupled up with another train tomorrow." "That's impossible." And with these words, he started the train, which left the station with the bees' carriage. The beekeeper also left in his red clothes. While most of the bees were busy gathering honey, they sent a small party back to see if all was safe with their carriage in the station. Well, when they arrived, they saw that the train had taken their hives away. They returned to the meadow and told the others that their carriage had vanished. So all of the bees flew back to the station, and when they arrived, they found people waiting for a passenger train. Well, the bees thought that these people had stolen their hives, and so they stung them and stung them. The people cried out for help. The station master heard their calls, so he rushed out of his office and he too was attacked by the angry swarm. His wife heard his cries and opened the window to see what was wrong. And as she opened the window, the bees rushed in and stung her so badly that she cried louder than all the rest. The station master heard this and he ran upstairs to find out what had happened to his wife. And then he saw that the whole room was filled with bees. The two of them had to hide under a blanket to save their skins, but both were badly stung and their faces sadly swollen. The people waiting for the train all ran back to their homes, but the swarm of bees flew after them. The other villagers heard their shouts and ran out into the street. "Help! The village is being attacked by bees!" And they rang the big bell. The station master eventually came to his senses and he called for the train to be sent back to the station, and it soon reappeared on the platform. The beekeeper, still dressed all in red, climbed on top of the carriage and started to call the bees back. "Come on, children, your hives are here." The bees, hearing their master's voice, gathered together and flew back in an orderly fashion. Those that had survived the bloody battle made their way quietly back into their hives. Then the beekeeper went to see the station master, but he could hardly recognize him. "You deserved whatever happened because you spoke to me so rudely." But the beekeeper eventually forgave the station master, and the beekeeper went back to the farm and laughed when he recalled what had happened that day. The bees soon started to make honey on the farm and made more money than all the farmers and animals put together. From then on, life on the farm was sweet. Hungarian Folk Tales. One-eyed, two-eyed, three-eyed. Once upon a time there lived a woman who had 3 daughters. The eldest daughter had 3 eyes, the middle one had 1 eye, and the youngest had 2 eyes. One day the woman decided to marry off her daughters. A young man arrived seeking a bride, but he wanted to marry the youngest daughter with 2 eyes. But the woman wanted to marry off her eldest daughter first. The woman and the 2 elder girls became very angry with the youngest. They had a goat, and the youngest girl had to watch the goat in the fields every day. The youngest daughter was very sad because her sisters hated her and did not give her any food to eat. She was crying in the fields one day, and the goat asked her, "Why are you so sad, my dear?" "I am sad and cry because my sisters hate me so much and they give me no food to eat." "Don't be sad, I shall help you. Whenever you feel hungry, just tell me, 'Little goat, come here and lay me a table, dear.'" The youngest daughter did as the goat said, and from then on she left for the fields every morning in the best of moods. The sisters soon began to wonder why the youngest one no longer asked for food. And they decided to spy on her. On the first day, the one-eyed daughter went with her 2-eyed sister to the fields to see what she did there all day. Both daughters sat down in the grass. "Lean your head in my lap," said the 2-eyed daughter to her 1-eyed sister. And as she lay down, her sister began to ask, "Are you awake or are you asleep, my sister?" And she kept on asking this until the 1-eyed sister fell fast asleep. Then the 2-eyed daughter said, "Little goat, come here and lay me a table, dear." time the one-eyed daughter woke again, the goat had cleared away all the food, including the table. When she returned home, the one-eyed daughter reported that she had seen nothing at all. The next day, it was decided that the three-eyed daughter should accompany her two-eyed sister to the fields. So the two girls went out to the fields with the goat. The three-eyed girl leaned her head into her sister's lap, and the two-eyed daughter began to recite. "Are you awake or are you asleep, my three-eyed sister?" Then the three-eyed daughter closed two of her eyes, but her sister did not see that her third eye stayed open, and she began to say, "Little goat, come here and lay a table for me, dear." The three-eyed daughter pretended to be fast asleep, and when she awoke, she did not tell her sister what she had learned while sleeping. At home, she told everything to her mother and sister. The youngest daughter became very sad when the three women decided to kill her pet goat. That night, she dreamt that an old man told her to ask for the hooves and horns of the goat and plant them behind the door without letting anyone see. So that is what she did. By morning, a fine apple tree had grown on that very spot. And no one could pick an apple from its branches except the two-eyed daughter. When the young man came, he asked the one-eyed daughter and the three-eyed daughter to pick him a golden apple from the tree, but neither could do it because the branches always pulled away from their grasp. They made the two-eyed sister hide under the bed, and she was not allowed to come out whenever the young man visited the house. But one day she rolled a golden apple out from under the bed, and the young man asked, "How did this apple roll here? Who rolled it here? I demand to see who did this thing." The two sisters said, "She is a dirty little nothing, and you should not waste your eyes on her." Then the young man looked under the bed and saw the two-eyed daughter he loved so very much. He took her by the hand and led her away, saying that she must be his wife and no other. Off they went, and the two sisters stayed at home. If they had not stayed at home, my story would have lasted longer still. Folk Tales. The Mayor's Clever Daughter. As many people know, Hungary's King Matthias liked to roam the country. Once he walked into a tiny village to see how the local people lived. There was an inscription on the gate of the mayor's house that read, "Here lives the village mayor. Here he lives with no trouble or care." King Matthias made a note of these words and scribbled the mayor's address down in a little book. "If your life's so carefree, Mr. Mayor, then it's my job to give you something to worry about," he thought. Then the king returned home. Back in those days, jugs were made out of clay, and one of the king's jugs had a hole in it. So King Matthias sent the jug down to the mayor, saying that he should mend the jug, or else have his head chopped off. The village mayor received both the jug and the message. He was very sad, because he really did not know what to do. The mayor had a pretty daughter who asked her father, "Dear father, I've never seen you worry like this before. What on earth's wrong? Why are you so very sad?" "Why should I bother telling you? You could never help." "But perhaps I can help after all. His Majesty the King has sent me a jug with a hole in it, with an order to mend it. But if I cannot fulfill his command, he'll have my head chopped clean off." "Oh, father, please don't be so sad. Send the jug back to the king with the message that he should turn the jug inside out, as material is always mended on the other side." Very well. And he sent the jug back with the message. This was a brilliant idea because the jug could never be turned inside out. After this, the king sent a millstone and ordered the mayor to skin it. This made the mayor even sadder, because it's impossible to skin a millstone. His daughter asked the mayor, "Why are you so sad again, father dear?" "My sweetest daughter, you definitely won't be able to help me this time, but perhaps I can help you after all. His Majesty has sent me a millstone and ordered me to skin it. If I do not obey him, I shall have my head lopped off. But it's really not a problem at all. Write a letter to the king asking him to have the millstone slaughtered, because no beast can be skinned before it's had its throat cut. And so the king should do the same to the millstone first." So the mayor sent the millstone back to the king with that message. The idea proved to be brilliant, and so this time the king ordered him to visit him at the palace. The village mayor went up to the palace where he thought he would be rewarded. But instead, the king wanted to know who had given him these inventive ideas, and so the mayor was forced to confess. I have a pretty daughter at home who helped me solve those two riddles. Very well, Mayor, I want you to go home and tell your daughter to come to my palace. She should wear no dress, but should not be naked, and she should not walk, should not ride, and should not come in a carriage. She also should, but should not bring me a gift. Head chopped off. So the mayor went home in very low spirits. He was convinced that his young daughter would never be able to solve such a complex riddle. The mayor told his daughter what the king had said, and then he added, "This is the end for you, my darling girl." "Why so, father dear?" "The king said you have to go to the palace. You should not wear a dress. You should not be naked. You should not walk. You should not ride. You should not go by coach. You should take him a gift, and at the same time, you should not take him a gift." "Very good, father. I shall go. Don't worry. Everything will be fine." So the girl took off her dress, but kept on her bra. Thus she was not wearing a dress, but at the same time, she was not naked. Then she took a billy goat and put one of her feet on the back of the goat and walked on one foot on the edge of the road. She then took a white dove and carried it in her hand, and this is how she went to the palace to see the king. When the king saw the girl, he was very surprised. Then the girl spoke to the king and said, "Your Majesty, I present myself upon your order." "This is your gift," she said, and let the dove fly away. Thus she took, and she did not take a gift. Then the king said, "Everything is fine, my girl, but tell me, why did you not hide your private parts instead of your bosoms?" And the girl replied, "Your Royal Highness, my private parts were created by God, but I grew my bosoms myself. I am ashamed of them, and that's why I hid them." The king gave the girl a handsome reward, and that is the end of my story.